You know what sound I love in the morning, Sean?
I don't know, the birds. You want me to put that Bieber song back on? What's going on?
I had a feeling you were gonna say that.
Superbikes.
Superbikes! I mean, is there anything better? And it's 2017, we've got an awesome lineup of leader bikes, a couple new bikes. We've got a returning one that I've got a soft spot for.
That's right, the Honda's all new, CBR 1000RR. There's also the new Suzuki Gixxer 1000, right? Both brand new bikes.
Yep, and then we've also got the Aprilia RSV4 RR, which Aprilia updated. And of course, we're out here at Thunder Hill. Had to bring the Yamaha YZF R1. This is a bike I've got a soft spot for. It's a fantastic motorcycle. It won our comparison test last year, and so we wanted to bring it out, see how it stacks up, right?
I gotta say, I'm super pumped to ride that Suzuki. You rode it at Phillip Island, Hoyer rode it at Coda.
And you get to ride it at Thunder Hill. I mean, this is a beautiful racetrack.
That's true, and this place is rad, and I absolutely can't wait.
Yeah, we've got all these bikes. I brought Corey Alexander up here with me, and I'm pretty sure that dude has not stopped studying track maps since we got in the car headed up here. Like you can't take the racer out of that, and I'm excited to see how a former Moto America Superstock 1000 racer takes to these things.
Dude, Colton hasn't done a wheelie since yesterday morning. The drive up here, he was like blowing a fuse in the car. He was losing his mind.
All right, so it sounds like we need to go ride some motorcycles.
Yeah.
It's time to do this. All right.
Track's in like 5 minutes. We need gear.
Let's make this happen.
All right, so I'm getting ready here to go out on track with the 2017 Yamaha R1. Though there is no changes for this year's model compared to last year's model, it made the cut for our shootout because it won last year's shootout. The Yamaha R1 is powered by a 998cc, 161 horsepower cross-plane engine. Along with plenty of motor power, it has a lot of braking power with a Advic 4-piston dual caliper front-end braking system. Also with that, there is the beautiful electronics display as well as its electronics package. It has traction control, slide control, and front and rear wheel lift control, which around a track like Thunder Hill here really aids in rider ability and comfortability. Gives you a lot of confidence while you're out there on the track.
The thing about the R1 that right out of the box had me stoked was the fact that it was one of the bikes here that when I got on it from the first lap out to the last lap in, I felt like it was a race bike. Because the power delivery is smooth, but it really has like an aggressive point shoot and get through the turn feel to it, as where some of the other bikes felt a little bit more street shot, and this thing was definitely one of the more aggressive of the group.
I think the biggest thing jumping on it right away, it was just super easy to ride. Everything worked really well. The power delivery is phenomenal from that cross-plane crankshaft. I don't think there was necessarily anything I necessarily disliked about it. You know, I would say for me, just getting used to the seating position, it's a little more on top of the bike, which is similar to the R6, which I've ridden before.
The initial bite that the pads themselves had in the braking system, as far as brake feel, it felt absolutely amazing, but it's completely rider preference for me. It's just really aggressive initially.
But overall, you know, it's a tough bike to really say that there's anything I necessarily would dislike about it. I think it just needs a little bit of personal refinement on my end.
Ergonomically, the R1 for me, it wasn't the smallest feeling bike here. It actually fit me quite well. I would change the foot peg position a little bit for me, being 6'1". Handling wise, it's the closest 600 feeling bike here because it really has that light feel on the front. You can flick it from side to side, and it may not be the lightest bike in pounds, but it definitely, to me, felt the lightest on the track.
At the end of the day, I was really comfortable on the R1. I think initially off the bat of all the bikes, I had not ridden any of them before, and so the R1 for me was the one that I kind of got accustomed to right off the bat, the easiest.
There's a reason that it won last year's shootout, and it's just really, really refined. They spent a lot of time developing a motorcycle that delivers all the things they would want it to for the track. I don't know if it would be the most comfortable bike on the street, but if you were an aggressive street rider and you got interest in the track, it's an amazing performing machine.
'17 GSX-R 1000. This is an important motorcycle for Suzuki. Think about it, the last time the GSX-R 1000 was updated was 2009. It was 8 years ago. The last major update, I should say. This is Suzuki kind of coming back as hard as they can, trying to close the gap to the bikes at the front of the leader bike category. Essentially, there were three main focuses for this platform. They wanted to update the engine, get a little bit more peak power out of the thing, a little bit more top end without sacrificing anything in the bottom. On the chassis, they wanted to just essentially make it lighter, smaller, but keep that same great Suzuki feel that the Suzuki chassis have provided over the years. And then third, they wanted to introduce some electronics to the platform. Not too much electronics, but just have the basics, have that traction control, have some wheel mitigation to it, have these little electronic features.
Across all the Suzukis, they always have like a comfortable feel to them. A lot of the bikes you sit on top of them, whereas the Suzuki, you feel like you're kind of more in it. Even though they made the new bike a little bit smaller, you don't really notice it. It still feels very, very much like the older ones.
And it was actually the bike that when I came off track, I felt the least fatigued. It was a very comfortable feeling motorcycle in comparison to some of the more race ergos from the R1 and the RSV. One thing that bothered me preference-wise was that under very hard braking, the ABS starts to initiate, which has feedback in the lever. And I myself, if I could, and on any of the bikes possible, would turn the ABS off if I possibly could, or to the least amount.
I've been racing GSX-Rs for almost 7 years now, on and off, and the characteristic that all of them have is that the brakes fade. And so getting on a brand new bike, you would think, okay, like they finally fixed the brakes, and you get on it, and after 3 or 4 hard laps, you start to get a little bit of a brake fade. So just things like that. They accomplished what they needed to in making the bike way better, but I just think that, I would have liked to have seen a little more electronics, a little better braking, and just kind of a better feel to it, a little more refined feel.
The GSX-R today really did an awesome job on hitting the mark on some things they needed to improve on. But all in all, they touched on a couple of the things they needed to, along with power delivery and some of the more advanced electronics, adjustability. I just wish they would have touched on taking care of the braking characteristics that I feel are needed on some of the current modern superbikes.
Probably the best part for me was just to see that they did listen to some of the things that they needed to change, and they accomplished that. I would like to have seen a few other things get updated to kind of bring it to the level where GSX-R is supposed to be. Like the GSX-R has always been known as the ultimate sport bike, but they've made definitely a giant leap forward to where they should be.
All right, so we just finished lunch, which is why I'm having a hard time getting my leathers back on. And I'm up next on the Aprilia RSV4 RR. The bike that we're testing retails for $16,999, and it's a V4 motor, makes 171 horsepower and 75 foot-pounds of torque. The main update for the Aprilia RSV4 is the Aprilia Performance Ride Control System. This includes the Aprilia Traction Control, Aprilia Wheelie Control, Aprilia Launch Control, Aprilia Quick Shift, Aprilia Pit Limiter, and the Aprilia Cruise Control System. Aprilia has also slightly updated the ride-by-wire system to save a little bit of weight and to improve the throttle response. Aprilia has also improved the braking system for the RSV4. The brake discs are 10 millimeters larger and 5 millimeters thicker, and they've also added cornering ABS to the system. Finally, the last big thing that you'll notice is that it has a whole new TFT color display, and that all the buttons and switches on the control panel are all new to kind of be more in line with the other bikes, to have that more premium feel.
Riding the Aprilia, that motorcycle is absolutely a race-bred motorcycle. You can tell by some of the componentry that it uses. The ergos to it are really aggressive. It has a little bit of raw feeling on the power with the V4, but it rolls on and it is fast.
So for me, the RSV4, right off the bat, as soon as I got on it, the bike just felt like a race bike. It had gobs of power. Anywhere I really wanted it, it seemed like anytime I rolled on the throttle, there was no shortage of power supply. I think they really accomplished giving a race package. Comparatively to the R1, they both, in theory, feel like race bikes, but the Aprilia just has that character to it that makes it more like a race bike.
And it had its own interesting quirks. I personally had a little bit of trouble with the quick shifter. I think it was due to an issue with me over-revving from second to third, but overall, that motorcycle really surprised me.
My biggest issue with the RSV4 probably was that the traction control was a bit inconsistent on how it modulated the wheel spin. It was kind of discouraging that I didn't feel like I could really rely on the traction control to save me in a type of scenario where I'm fully leaned over and on the throttle aggressively, where the wheel is spinning. Like I want something that's going to give me good feedback, that I know what it's going to do when it does come on.
I would say overall, the one thing that I exceptionally liked as well about the RSV is that it actually, for my style, it had my favorite front-end braking feel, as well as overall brake power and modulation for me. And that's one thing I really enjoyed about it. But overall, it's definitely like kind of a turnkey race bike, and there's a certain type of enthusiast that find a lot of enjoyment out of getting an RSV4. It's got that Italian feel to it. When it came down to it, the most impressive thing about that bike today is it just breathes fire on the power side. I'm about to test ride the 2017 CBR 1000RR. This is the first major overhaul that the Honda has had since 2008. They had a couple minor revisions in 2012 and some SP model additions, but they focused on dropping the weight and bringing it to the lowest in its class. 14% better power to weight ratio, and one of the things that I'm most excited about is the auto blip up and downshift along with the new slipper clutch. So that's going to be something here that I'm really excited to test today.
New CBR 1000, right off the bat, the bike just seemed like a pretty nice package, which I think is something that you can tell like right away when you jump on it, that the quick shift up and down and throttle response and everything's just super smooth and kind of, it's refined. It's a refined bike, and I think that was probably the best thing about it, was that I could just jump on it and I felt confident in that everything was going to work the way it was supposed to and the way I wanted it to.
The thing on the Honda that was the most impressive for me, that took a little while to get used to, because the first two sessions I had trust issues with just trusting the fact that auto blip shifting was going to work on the downshifting coming into the corners and that the slipper clutch was going to pick up the slack. Earlier in the day I was taking 2 downshifts coming into one, later in the day taking a single downshift, and it took a little trust to just not touch the lever, hold onto the bar, grab a downshift and let it send into the corner. Their quick shifting and slipper clutch system was very refined, and the motorcycle handled amazing as far as upshift and downshift and seamlessly auto blipping into a corner without having to worry about upsetting the motorcycle.
There was a few things about the CBR that I wasn't a big fan of, and similar to the R1 where it had a wallowing type of feel, the CBR I think was quite a bit worse. So we ended up going 2 rounds of preload on the rear of the bike, and that kind of just stiffened up the rear of the bike. Through the fast stuff, it allows it to hold itself up.
One thing that I disliked about the Honda, and it was a similar feeling that I felt on the Suzuki, although the brakes as a whole had great consistency and power, it also had that attribute where under hard braking force I would get some ABS kickback resistance to the lever, but only under very hard, harsh braking conditions.
Overall, I think the CBR, it's a good bike. It wasn't my favorite personally, but I think it does a lot of things well. I mean, any sort of electronics package, which I think is the biggest addition to this new bike, is the electronics. I think Honda killed it off the bat. Everything they put out is a very refined and very finished product, and that's what you kind of expect from a brand like Honda.
Well, Sean, I'm exhausted.
That was so many laps.
Right. I'm not complaining. This is, I mean, Thunderhill on 4 bad to the bone leader bikes. I mean, this is an amazing day.
We still have street testing.
We've got street testing.
We can't figure out which one to buy. It's
Lots
gotta
of
work in
things
both.
to do still. So that's the thing. This is just the end of part 1.
Just part 1.
Still got street riding to do. That's where these bikes are going to spend the majority of the time. We realize that.
Yeah, something like 90-something% of people that buy the street bike.
It's a significant amount of people,
use.
yeah, ride them on the street. So that said, you ready to get out of these things, dude?
Dude, I hate leathers. I hate them.
You hate them right now. They kind of save your bacon out on the track. But.
All right, we gotta load up some bikes first.
All right, let's do it. Let's get out of here, man.